Like a foundational or the curtains, like
either way, I can switch regardless. I'll switch it since it's one.
I think the recording system is kind of sensitive.
Oh, really? Just let me know when you
Well,
want to
maybe
start.
when somebody's talking, I guess we'll have a prohibition on the top one. Is that allowed to stream this noise?
I don't want to get it, well, it's best just not to use it.
Alrighty.
Let me know when you.
I'm ready, so those of you who don't know me, my name is Walter. I'm the original founder of the Twin Galaxies, simply the last whatever this scoreboard was founded 36 years ago. And it was kind of like the shepherd, kind of like was the custodian, the earliest custodian of organized, like global esports in a sense, where all the arcades around the world theoretically were connected to an international global esports arena. And in the course of being like the organizer of early contests, we found that some games were like the leaders of the whole culture. And the one who seems to stand paramount, head and shoulders above any of the other games, has been Donkey Kong. So Donkey Kong has been like a benchmark game, an amazing cultural phenomenon that seemingly again and again has been the battleground for great competition and for great controversy, for very challenging things that kind of shakes organized video game playing to its very roots. So we know the King of Kong movie has come out, and that went through a long process of people trying to figure out, game settings or whether or not people cheating in games and everything. So that's quite a tradition that seems to have continued to the modern day, and now we are faced with issues of whether or not people are using MAME or using regular arcade gameplay. And so I, who have been invited to just make this preamble to these proceedings here, am not a technologist and know very little about how games work. But because I have been closely associated with Billy Mitchell, one of the prime people involved in this issue, because I've been so involved with him over the years, I have numerous times given my own personal testimony that I have seen Billy Mitchell in action as a player and as a person all these years, and my direct experience, knowing him very deeply, and I think he does very deeply, that he does not use pain in his gameplay. But that has always been my statement since these issues have arisen. And I realized that the people who are technologically oriented have to figure out that side of the issue and figure out whether or not MAME is more for regular gameplay. So the people who know the technology are here in the room. Carlos, why don't you come up and give a report? This is Carlos.
Hey everybody. So I got involved in this by accident. Didn't even know Twin Galaxies existed or this whole group thing. I volunteered to do it, and my gosh, it has been a world of backlash to the point where I think my wife is going to leave me just for her safety. I'll leave it there. So in retrospect, what we're having is we have a situation where in the forums and in the dispute, you have hundreds of pages of people finding little clues here and there and exploding with it. The reality is this: very, very, very few people have access to the equipment to do their own testing. So a lot of stuff you're hearing is a lot of repeats. Repeat this, they repeat what they read here, and a lot of the stuff I try to go through as much as I can. really doesn't make sense. And my background was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I worked on arcade boards. I worked on them. I worked on the classics. Donkey Kong, when I did it 20 years ago, was a classic. I was 22, 23, and the board was 20 years old at the time. And now it's like a 40-year-old board. So a lot of the things that I try to debunk, I get attacked for on the forums. Just yesterday, I had a person find a video of my wife and I eating, and he nicely, unfortunately, he's a tech too, just named me a retard. So I leave it there, I don't erase it. So understand that a lot of the things you're reading are just repeats. But let me give you some bullet points here. One of the arguments is that the tape that they're using, that Billy did, was recorded on MAME, even though you can really physically see that the quality of it is pretty darn bad. And one of the situations also comes down to that there really was no good way of capturing these gameplays. You couldn't put a webcam. The webcams of the time just didn't have the quality. You have to really put yourself back to the day. And we're talking about early 2000s. So what people did was use a camcorder. Now, what Billy used was a $200 device, which was pretty much a converter that allowed the output of the screen's cable to be converted into an output that you can throw into a capture card, VCR, a VGA cable. We've all seen that yellow cable from our Nintendo. That's the output, and that's what was used. Now, while I'm being hit on the things that are seen, every time I point out stuff, the loud voices tend to try to block it. So here's the points. One, MAME always generates a very, very clean output because there really isn't a way to record it at the time. There is no VCR output. You gotta have some special cards. So people do this thing called the video dump, which it practically takes that clear image straight out of memory and makes it a file, and the file is what you play. That's why when you see MAME plays, they're excessively clean. It's kind of like taking a snapshot from your cell phone. It's clean, it's perfect. So first the argument was that a MAME is so clear it doesn't produce an output like an arcade. Now in the Billy tapes, you got 2.5 hours of gameplay that looks like the first accusation was arcades do this swipe effect, all right? And MAME does this pop effect. So that was first the thing they kept hitting me with. But if you watch the Billy tape, it's 99% swiped out. And what's going on here, you're having what's called the shutter effect. The shutter effect pretty much is the image that's being sent to the screen isn't reading in the same timing as the shutter of your camera or your capture device. So sometimes you're gonna see like this darkness right through it, all right? And also, the converter does not have a VGA input. This is important because MAME is run on a computer. Based on what the investigation says, it was a PC MAME of a certain version. So I don't want to get too technical because I know it can get very boring, but I'm gonna make this really easy on you guys. Help me out, do a little investigation. Want to join me on this?
Sure.
Ready? Let's do this. All right, and I'm gonna show you guys something that all of you can do right here, right now. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have read the original dispute, the Young dispute. You've seen it? Where they show the 4 MAMEs, all right? Well, the 4 graphics of how the MAME renders the first Donkey Kong stage. All right, I don't know the name of the barrel stage they call it. The first stage. The claim is that the girders with the tail, because that's now the contention, that is what everybody's looking at. The girder with the tail has only been able to be reproduced on a MAME machine. That's the only way they've been able to replicate that look. They have been recording arcades, I've been looking at outputs, and this is what they're holding on. And I'm working on that, but the truth is, I don't own the Donkey Kong machine. I'm actually physically going to a place, taking my time, getting the equipment, putting it together, and I still have a life to live and stuff, because I don't wanna buy another house and find another wife, so I can't focus 100% on it, but we're gonna do this together real quick. Everybody's seen the dispute where they show main version 0.115 and before doesn't do the tail on the girder. Version 116 to version 121 shows the tail. And this is the main they state that was used, and that main existed in 2007. According to the main developer site, version 116 was released in June 10, 2007. And version 121 was one of the last versions that did that tail on the girder. And that was released in November 18, 2007. Well, the King of Kong was released in 2007. The problem is that the Billy tape that is used in the argument was filmed in 2004. So every time I try to point things out, like, well, there was no MAME in existence that generated the girder with the tail when that tape that's being used for the allegation came out. So we have a situation where we're capturing a tail on a girder, and the way that Billy records his system at the time and all his games will generate that once or twice in a 2-hour play. That's another part of the investigation that's really hard. You literally have to set the thing up and record for hours. That's how I've been doing it. You record for hours, and then you gotta capture it. You gotta catch it. Because the timing is not at any time, it's when it's doing the transitions. So in reality, we have a main that replicates the same output in the accusation was created 2 years later than what the original videotape was done. So I'm actually actively working on replicating, but finding the stuff, even finding an old CRT TV, I literally had to go online and find a woman in a corner who sold her kids' TV for like 20 bucks. But I'm trying to find all the original parts. So I did put out a video where I was demonstrating how the two outputs, when you have the TV in the arcade, from one arcade machine shows 2 different images. But it was brought to my attention that now the focus is really down to the girder with the tail. So I am actively seeking to and working on getting that replicated and replicating it right. And once I have that, I'm gonna output it. I'm gonna show everybody the evidence and how you guys and anybody else can replicate it. But in reality, the main that replicates that tail didn't exist for 2 years. So we really have a MAME that came out later that replicates the video output in the fashion that the video looks. And finding that piece like that is, it's hard, but I'm gonna do it and I'll show you guys. That way, once I figure it out, you guys can do it all yourselves. So the reason I wanted to point this one out, because this is one that's easy for you guys to test yourself. You can go home, you can pop your smartphones out and look at the speed, look at the graphics, and you can look at the date of the video. Also, MAME, I've had people argue this one, where the output doesn't come out vertical unless you really set it up. But the way the capture card really works, it converts the output from the arcade straight to RCA. And these games were vertical setup. So you literally had to really turn the screen to play them. All right. Now with the camcorder setup, you can just turn your camera and you're fine. All right. So I did say that I had concluded in my video, but it got a lot of attacks. So I'm changing my position on that part until I replicate that so it's 100%. But those are the parts that I'm telling you, because these are things that you can do. You don't even need a machine to see the dispute, see the versions, and watch that it just doesn't match. And every time I find these little knickknacks and I bring it up, I get more people just attacking me for being me than get used to it. I thought it'd be cool, but I'm not that cool. No, it's just, so it's kind of rough. But if it's not too technical, because I don't want to bore you guys, I'll take like 2 or 3 questions. But understand that, I'm gonna try to make it as English as possible, not because I don't believe that you guys won't understand it, because I believe there's plenty of technicians and plenty of people that use these things, but it really sometimes makes for worse. But
Yeah, the tail on the girder, does that prove as any significant gameplay changes, or is it just some sort of visual anomaly that happens in this?
I don't like to use the word anomaly.
Sure, not an anomaly,
But,
yeah.
because it's been seen more than once, then if it's been reported, then it can be redone. And it's just finding why was it the devices that were used at the time made that thing look like that? And for some reason, version 116 to version 121, they found that that's the main. I haven't tested that myself, but I'm trusting the authorities that have done it. So I'm going by those graphics. That
But it still plays the same as a normal talkie.
Oh yeah, no, MAME is amazing.
Okay, yeah.
Honestly, it's amazing. It does a beautiful job, 99.99% accuracy, especially with the classics. But what we're dealing is at the end, MAME is really not even an identical twin. It's an imposter. It's an emulator.
Yeah.
It's really taking the ROM, looking at the data, and acting like it's some sort of other computer, and translating it to work for your computer.
Right.
But one of the things that makes MAME very smart is it sees how fast your brain is, your computer's brain, and the brain at that time, and puts a lot of weights, tops, and stops and cycles, so it works exactly the same. If not, the moment you start that Donkey Kong, when you're at the end, you're like, whoa, because it's just the speed of the computer. Now, the way the display is processed, the old arcade boards, they didn't use frame buffers or none of that stuff. It just had to keep shooting that signal at the right frame rate that the screen was. And it has this thing called a sync cable. And the sync cable's job is to kind of perfect the little anomalies off of the screen, where it's kind of saying, all right, sorry. So it readjusts it. Our regular, if you had a CRT TV, our TVs would do that automatically, but sometimes if it went right off of its tolerance ability, it would start scanning. You physically had to go up and turn that vertical hold just right so it would, and it would lock in. That's really what it did. But MAME doesn't do that because it doesn't really output normally. The output then goes into a memory buffer, who then the beautiful video card processes beautifully, down to the point where MAME is so clear that the pixels don't even look round, they're square. And that's just to enlarge it, it's just tripling, quadrupling the dot just for size purposes. But even in the video, you don't see those square pixels. But that gets really, really long and technical and boring. But I am actively, though in the video, if you've seen it, I did say my conclusion was this. Well, I'm answering the questions that I've been hit with, and it's about that girder tail. And I have brought up an interest that I found, other than the clarity, because the style that was used to record the arcade isn't very clean, but it was very neat for the time, the converter board, where at the time it looked simple, but it was $200. So I am actively on that. I have written it in the comments. If you find it through the bile and hate, you'll see that I'm like, I'm working on this and I'm gonna replicate it. But I like pointing out the main version thing, because that's something, you don't need a board, you don't need nothing, and you can look it up yourself. Physically, like this, oh yeah, it doesn't match, they're 2 years apart. So, we're gonna replicate that. Well, I'm gonna replicate it. One more? I don't want this to sound like school, but, a lot of the stuff that I learned when it came to this stuff, where I'm talking, it took years, and it's a lot of burned fingers and a lot of dust, and you love it. You fall in love with the work you do, and before you know it, it's 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you figure something, you figure this and that, and it becomes really, really fun. But it's if I had to put it down in one sentence, there's a lot of people that are very passionate about getting this answer, and there's a lot of noise. And I wish I could write you a one sheet that will teach you guys stuff that took artist techs years to learn. Years. But if we can do that, we'd be very rich and all very, very, very smart in our subjects. So explaining that really gets very difficult. So that's why I try to do it visually, in the video visually, like visual examples, because that's something that people in general can understand. But I am actively searching how to recreate that girder, because if it's in a couple recordings from the time, I'll reproduce it. And then I will show how it's done. But I'll take one more, and then we can go back to the on-off questions. Huh?
What if somebody wants to ask you a private question here, will you say the table?
Yeah, sure. You can ask me stuff from private, but I'll be here till the end. So
It's kind of interesting to me that nobody has any questions, but there seems to be a lot of questions online.
I'll take it.
In other words, I walk up and I say hi and I shake hands, and I'm my usual self, and I'm kind and I'm appreciative of everyone that comes here, and everything seems to go real well. And then they go home and it goes back to the way it was. That's not ideal.
Let me introduce myself, guys. So,
And believe me, I didn't want us to even have this. I wanted to stay out there.
thank you, everyone.
It's anonymous.
Everybody's saying it's not. Is it real?
all right, guys. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Isaiah Triforce Johnson. That's my legal name, so people just call me Triforce for short. I am not a Donkey Kong player. My entire piece in this is to represent the ignorance of, people in Donkey Kong, because I'm ignorant to Donkey Kong. So from my point of view, a lot of people think I'm a tool for Billy and I'm trying to protect Twin Galaxies or any of that regarding the entire Donkey Kong dispute, but that's not why I'm here. My job is to think as the layman's person. I've never played Donkey Kong before. I don't even know what the arcade is about, but I hear this big dispute. It's all over social media and I want to know what it is. So my job is to break it down to the regular people. So MAME is an emulator, for those who don't know what this is. And the purpose of MAME is to copy the arcade, which is why Carlos said it's an imposter. Its job is to copy what the arcade does. MAME isn't its own standalone system, or that's a different variant from actual arcades. It copies whatever the arcade does. So what happens is that you'll have an arcade, and what they'll do is they'll create a MAME, which pretty much duplicates the arcade. So with that being said, and now that you guys understand this, the dispute is about Billy Mitchell's game appearing to be exactly like MAME. Unfortunately, if anyone actually looks at the footage of the comparisons, nobody's game actually looks like MAME. Some people are close, there are similarities, but frames, item pockets come in at different times. Some may come in like the girder, the barrel stage, right? Some will load up the 3 girders or 2.5 or with the tail or whatever. But then in the next frame, the entire screen generates everything on the screen, as opposed to in MAME, it takes probably 4, 5, 6, 7 different frames, depending on which model of MAME it is, to populate the screen or even draw the screen the same. The problem here is inconsistency. There is nothing consistent. Even in Billy's game, something that should have been obvious, if you watch the entire 2-hour tape, or 2-3-hour tape, what loads like one way in one tape doesn't even load another way a half an hour later. It loads completely different. So there's no consistency even in the actual game itself. And there's no consistency in anyone's game, because your score, the amount of men you have, the amount of Donkey Kongs that appear on the screen, all changes the way the next level will be loaded. It all has some type of effect to the game. And that's why you get these different inconsistent pieces and elements. What we're talking about is one frame, a single frame, which is 2/3 of 1 second that was caught. And they're saying this one frame is from Maine, and that is the entire argument. But then recently, as I don't know if everyone knows about this, this was put out by a couple of people, Carlos came across it, that Billy's game that Jet is 1,000,004, it's 1,047,000, right? 1,047,000? Right? That game generates the girders with the tail. But that game generated that graphic 2 years before the main version that did that even exists. So the question is, wait a minute, how can game that did not exist generate a graphic before it exists? So if you look at the rest of Billy's games, 1.5, 1.6, they all generate the same way as well. But that's supposed to happen. If he's using the same equipment from an older age, he's supposed to get that consistent load up. But the way it's loading up existed before the main version that load up that way even exists. So clearly, the 1.7 cannot be main, because that version of main that loads up like that didn't even exist. And if it's consistent with the 1.5 and the 1.6, then neither one of those two can be main either. That you don't have to be a technical genius. You just understand it's about time. If it didn't exist, how can main exist before itself if it was never out? So what you come down to is with Carlos here is finding out why did Billy's game generate this image, which later on main comes around and loads up similar. That's really about it. And for those who've seen Billy play in public or whatever the case may be, this is why there's so much contention between the community. Those who are not alive to see Billy play in public or have never been to an event to see Billy play in public, they see this image on YouTube and it's similar, and you're like, wait, man, that's similar. He's gotta be cheating. But then those who were there, who've seen Billy play, who knows how Billy plays and whatnot, and understands how the arcades work, they're like, nah, it's just a similarity. And this is the divide here. And unfortunately, what's going on is that you have sources, people with social media platforms going out there and stating that Billy's a cheater, despite the fact Twin Galaxies says it is an ongoing investigation. So what we come to in a conclusion is that it is best for everyone to wait. Let the experts investigate, do all the technical mumbo jumbo, and let them explain to you how it works, rather than trying to be affirmed in your belief because someone you like online says it, and you're like, well, he's my friend, so, and I know this guy, my other friend told me, so it's gotta be true, and you just go, I'm just gonna agree with it because I don't wanna look stupid not agreeing with the public. This is called public or popular opinion. The issue here isn't about popular opinion. The issue here is there's a dispute that's saying his game plays like main, and that they showed a version of the main that it plays like. Unfortunately for the disputer, that version of main didn't even exist when he actually played the game. So they have to now find out why was this said and how this could have came to be what it is, and come to a conclusion whether or not Billy played main or not. And that's one situation. Then the next one is, for argument's sake, let's say it is main. Did Billy know it was main and willingly cheated and played the game? That's a whole nother situation. And there's another thing about he never played in an event live, never did anything live before, and he went home and doctored and spliced together a tape and submitted that in. But that doesn't make any sense because none of his submissions were ever done through videotape. They were all refereed. So there's a lot of things people don't understand. And like I said, I'm not here to defend Billy, or I'm neither for or against. I'm here to let everyone know that you should go to Twin Galaxies, see what they say, wait for their investigations to be confirmed, before people start making their opinions about the situation. I'm gonna stop on that. I don't wanna take up too much of you guys' time. But if anyone have any questions for Billy, like he said, he's here now. A lot of people feel he's dodging and ducking and he doesn't want to talk to anyone. Billy's a public person. He's always played in the public. He's always been to events from Florida Expo. He's here at Arcade Expo. He tours the entire country for video games and stuff like that. And he's never shied away from the public. So here's anyone's chance now. Don't feel that there's any question you can ask that would be rude. Billy likes those questions. So you guys have the floor.
What was the exact date and location of the $1,047,000?
I don't know the exact date, but it was just in Rob's Arcade.
Okay. And Rob's Arcade is the,
In Fort Lauderdale.
in Fort Lauderdale. Any other question?
I have one.
You sure?
But-
I never heard anything about this before I walked in here. All I heard was Bill Mitchell, Walter Day are gonna be here, and I'm like, boom, I'm there.
So you're like me.
What exactly is the allegation, other than the fact that the game was played on Maine, and what is the practical impact of playing it on Maine? Because Maine's an emulator, plays the ROM, so it's still the game, right?
Well,
I'm assuming it has something to do with whether or not the high score is a valid high score.
the dispute is simply that he played on Maine. That's the actual dispute.
Okay.
Unfortunately, detractors have come in and blew up the dispute from not only being Maine, that Billy never played live, that he was in his room with someone helping him literally save state each game, spliced together a full 3-hour video and submitted that, and that's how he got the record, because he's not good enough to get it, so it's fake. It's blown up to that. And what we're trying to do is trying to put the brakes and like, whoa, everyone, listen. There's videos and websites out there that literally say Billy Mitchell's world record has been removed and he's been found a cheater. When you go to Twin Galaxies, the record is still there, and Twin Galaxies says we're still under investigation. So how did something go from investigation to he's found, there's a verdict already that he's guilty, literally, and that his record is gone, but he's not guilty, the investigation is still going, and the record's still there. And this is what happens when you get people from the outside who do not have the experience coming in and weighing their opinion on the situation. There are a lot of people, this is not an opinion, since the King of Kong movie, that have painted Billy in a certain light, which has garnered a lot of public enemies, and anyone who works with Billy is his minion, houseboy, that's Clan Wizards, all types of stuff. So,
If nobody wants to ask a question, I'll give you a little background.
Can I ask one?
No,
I wanna ask this one.
no.
This one. Did they give you an advance copy of Maine, do you in advance before they released it so you could cheat?
If nobody wants to ask a question, I'll give you a little.
You should
Okay.
answer that.
I met Richie Knuckles in 2010. Recently, he's cleaning out his warehouse that he's been in all this time, and he came across some items that were given to him by a particular loser in 2010. And it's titled, Billy Mitchell, Top Secret with a Smiley Face. This has been planned for a long time. There's a few people that have a serious problem, okay? And other people who simply have curiosity because of all this. And if Carlos and other kind people who have extended themselves can help or can answer these questions, that's terrific. But the idea to satisfy these people, zero, no interest, none, zip. And I've asked them, I said, please don't do anything. The people who have questions that he's communicated with some, yeah, please help them. But the fact of the matter is, there's a few people that do this day and night, nonstop, not just against me, and there's nothing anybody can do to help them. Nothing. Zero. And, I mean, I had a guy spend $100,000 on a YouTube movie to say that I wasn't the first guy to do the perfect score on Packers. Before the movie came out, his friend, who's my friend as well, outed him and found out the truth and says, you better tell the truth. okay? I can't help those people. There's nothing I can do. Nothing. They're full of venom and I don't spend any time on it. Honest to God, never one time ever have I been on the Twin Galaxies forum or any other forum. I don't. I mean, I just don't. Because I don't engage in that. It's shocking to me that nobody ever called to ask me a question. I learned about it because Neil called me and said, oh, look what's going on. And if it wasn't for somebody like Carlos, who basically saw it online, who walked in the door and said, hey, Rob, I saw what you put here. He says, you're on target, but I think I can explain it better. Technical? I mean, I don't know. I'll answer any question I can as far as history and reality. It's interesting that none of the original tapes, none of them can be found. None of them. Yet, people who are the keepers of tapes, there's over 1,000 tapes in one place, okay? There's several hundred in another place, and there's a few dozen in another one, 3 that I know. One of them, 2 of them actually, said that people have come and rummaged through the tapes. And now, nobody can find the tapes. If you found the original tapes, then there wouldn't be any question. So my answer to your question is, what do you want me to tell you? They don't have the tapes. The tapes weren't made as a method of verification. That's what TG officials were there for. This wasn't at a time when everybody streamed on, oh, it's just web stuff. It wasn't. Or I would have had it set up that way. But I purposely walked through here and shook hands with what I was told. What I was told was naysayers, and I purposely extended myself. I said hello, or I thanked them for coming, and I was open to anything they might ask me. And they haven't said anything, and I'm not going to make anything unpleasant for anybody at an event like this. I just don't do that. Quite honestly, I'm not happy they had this panel discussion. Without lying to you, what if you had this discussion, and I just said, oh, I'm not going in there. That would be worse. That's why I'm standing there halfway out the door. Because can we move along here so we can go back to the Kong off, where Robbie has just won another round? Things like that. We're all here for Robbie today. but the fact of the matter is, nobody asked me a direct question. I get emails. I'm extremely private. Not many people have my information. But I get emails from people who say that they're theologians. They're prophets sent by God to bring me down. And it's a long fall to Hades. But my day will come. Be humble and move on. Okay? There are real, true police investigative reports where the police got involved. Okay? On behalf of me and Walter. In more than one country. And quite honestly, I'm not afraid, or I don't get intimidated by anybody. But it's irresponsible of me not to be cautious. I have a wife and children. I have people that reach out to my wife and kids. That's like crazy. These are video games. I can answer any question. I got a very good memory. If it's technical, somebody smarter than me has to answer it. But there's a very, very small group of people, and not one of them is at this event, that nothing in the world will ever, ever, ever satisfy them, ever. No amount of anything will ever fill the hole they have in them, and I can't help those people. The other people who intentionally or not became involved, those I would help. I'd answer any question, and I certainly would answer to authority. So I never get involved in anything that's negative, but in this case, people who were involved, say Rob, who did everything, the manager of Boomers, which was the world's largest arcade, who set everything up, the distributor who loaned the game, okay, they're all being called liars and cheats and all that.
That's something.
So if I didn't get involved or decide to, excuse me, help the situation, well then my ego would keep me from being a very good friend. So I had to begin to address it.
Who certified the board?
If you go back in Twin Galaxies records, when all of this first happened, I said to a couple of referees, I go, you guys had the tapes. Yeah, I had the tapes. Well, where are they? And I go, well, you had them, you reviewed them, or I go, was anybody uncomfortable then? No. Was Pete Bouvier uncomfortable then? Pete was there. No. I go, I mean, somebody spent a lot of time to prepare on this. I mean, believe me, I got it down. Okay? But they spent a lot of time to prepare on this and caused a lot of headaches, and we're all in this room and we shouldn't be. Okay? Like, one of the people I'm talking about stood right there and watched me get 1,000,000 points. Okay? You wouldn't want to take a polygraph now, would you? I would. But anyway, this isn't what it's supposed to be about. I do have the characterization and the fun that I play. I actually did something halfway nice for Steve Wiebe a short while ago, just for fun. Yeah, that's a characterization, but I never get involved in negative things. I just don't. I mean, I just don't. And I feel bad that everybody's in this room and you should be out there.
Really? Never answered the question. Who certified the board?
Oh. Going back to when somebody, I'm going to give you the longer answer. When somebody was working really hard to prove Steve Wiebe a liar, really hard, and he was going to make a movie and wanted my help, and he said he's making a movie, I said, yeah, I'll help you. Well, then it got to the point where the movie was nothing but bashing against Steve Wiebe and Walter, so I withdrew my help, or didn't focus on me because I was the bad guy. Well, not wanting to fall under the negativity that Steve Wiebe did, where they said he cheated, I took a board, I sent it to Nintendo, okay? The senior engineer named Wayne went through it. It's a longer story than that. He had been there forever. He said, I don't have the equipment, I got it out of the attic, and he certified it that it was real. And I never had control of the board. When the game was played, the board went back to Nintendo where he recertified it. So it happened twice. Okay? Anybody's welcome to play that board. And if that board gives you better luck, there's gonna be a real score. So what? But again, I'm just flabbergasted that those questions are never asked. But then somebody sends me a video. Oh, remember you were on this Twin Galaxy show? And I said, which show? Settle It on the Screen, where they talk about how the board went and got certified and came back. And I'm like, it really, again, there are curious people, and I'd answer any question you have. Curious people who simply want to find the truth. But there's those people, they will not be satisfied, ever. It doesn't matter what answer you give them, Carlos. They're a politician. They're not going to say, I got it now. They're going to have a question for a question, for a question, for a question. I mean, I can tell you stuff that would, he talks about how he's been attacked. I can tell you stuff that would piss anybody off in this room. And I don't really know what to say. Today, I got a message about somebody who researched me so thoroughly. Luckily, I don't have anything. Researched me so thoroughly, I have an outstanding ticket that I'm fighting with the county that I'm in. I mean, man, they really worked hard. So now I'm getting to go hire LifeLock and all these other things, so nothing stupid happens to me. I mean, I don't know what to say. Think about how hard you have to work to do that. And somebody, it's that important to them, they did it. This person writes the same way all the time. It doesn't matter what phony name they have under it. We know who it is. And IP addresses don't lie. And when somebody gets into your email multiple times from multiple locations in 2 different countries, and AOL tracks it to each IP address, and it tracks to Darren Harris's house, okay, to Rick Fothergill, to Greg Zakundiak, okay, and on and on and on. I know who that guy is who's friends with every one of those people or was back in those days. When I set up an email that has his name on it as a trick, and when he goes in the email, when he goes in and sees the email and sees his name, boom, he opens it, he's an idiot, he fell for the trick and I got him. But I just don't talk about these things because if I had a talk show and we were having fun and I was a shock jock, I could make every one of you guys laugh. But that's like not what we do here. And like I said, so very little of what we do now is actual gaming. We sort of move on to another point in life where you push, promote, and advocate. You try to be an ambassador for people who want to play and enjoy. You know, there's certain people here, and I'm gonna be really, really disappointed if when we're done here, you can't come up and ask me a question. I mean, but there's certain, I see your hand, don't worry. Oh. I feel real bad because some people are so dug in, they can't backpedal. Not everybody has the personality to backpedal. And I got a joke. I said I can backpedal because I got a wife. If anybody's got a wife knows how to backpedal. And if I didn't know how to backpedal, I wouldn't have a wife. But there's certain people that are so dug in, they're not gonna backpedal. They're not gonna scratch their head and simple. They're not gonna say, you know, there's a lot of drama here. It is confusing. All the facts weren't there ahead of time. Now that it's coming out, there is, you know, too much uncertainty, and I wish I never got involved in this. And I would say I appreciate the kind words. And that's what I would say. I wouldn't rub anybody's nose in anything, nothing. But
We got like,
people can't backtrack easily.
we got like 10 minutes left. So, you got your question?
Oh yeah, this is also, well, more like a statement, like, yeah, we've met you before the other previous 2 times we went, and I say, like, as you said, you know, like, you were always right there in the public. You shook everyone's hand, kindly took pictures with us, and, you know, like, yeah, people are just jealous. Like, what people think, like, I know there's this one YouTuber, and he always bashes you. He's just jealous. You know, it's like, all he does is like, you know? But, you know, it's like, you know, like, yeah, you're a very nice person, and, you know, like,
Well, again, they tend to start at the same point. But when you take people that are what you'll call like shock jock YouTubers,
yeah.
they do what they do because that's their job or they make money. And if people take that serious, well, you know, that's why you'll see something on certain websites and you wouldn't see it in Nintendo Life because it's a different kind of investigation. And I feel bad for some people that I think were, you know, led that way, and the questions would easily be answered, and they will be. And then I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable that they can't feel comfortable. That's why I walked up and I said, "Hey, Billy Mitchell, everything good?" I mean, I don't conduct myself that way. I know I do in the movies because it's good. But question, sir.
Okay. Rick Fothergill, you know, there's one main accusation he's had, maybe it's come down the pipeline, about the gentleman's handshake. I've never heard your side of the story.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother subject, so do you think we should open
sorry.
that up here? We can, or you wanna ask me out there?
Oh, okay, some other time, sorry about that.
Anybody else?
And he wouldn't give you that version now.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to say that this got so intense, not now, but a couple years back, is Rick Fothergill, who became a personal friend of mine. Backed up, he won't answer any phone calls, he changed his number. He's answered one email in a billion years, and I feel loudly about it, because he's a terrific guy, but because he didn't cooperate with this guy that I'm talking about, he became a target. I mean, okay, you, go online, say all these wonderful things, and you'll see the claws come out. I'm sorry, that's true, and I wish it wasn't.
Another question.
What would you like to play of next for your next record, if anything?
What would I like to play? Yeah. Well, I had this idea that, because I'm so impressed with what Pat LaFahey did with Frogger, that I wanted to get good at it. And before all this, I was like sort of passionate to get better at Frogger, but I sort of lost that because I'm involved. Okay, he has a real job. He dedicates whatever amount of time he can. I can't yell at him. It's only gonna happen as fast as it happens. So, and I met his wife to try to like get her schmoozy because she wants to know why he spends all this time. I mean,
Anyone else?
Sure.
Would you, because you already did Donkey Kong, would you do Sega's Donkey Kong?
Not a chance. This sounds funny, but you'd have to ask anybody in here that's my age or close.
Yeah.
Do you want to start a new conquest? And if they tell you yes, they're mentally ill. I mean, but again, I want to go out of my way for anybody who, especially, came to the event because the event is intended for a particular purpose. And I think that people who are curious don't want to cause pain or heartache. They've just been caught up and would like to know answers. Again, there's those few that'll be silenced by lethal injection only. I've had people call me and say, of the small group, this particular guy, we knew him, told me all kinds of interesting things about him and what he became involved in that made him go that way. And so I'm sort of learning as I go. I'm also learning, because I'm the first one to tell you, I don't know anything about the stuff he's talking about. I can just go, and there's a lot of people smarter than me, but he has educated me to the fact that most people, not every person, most people out there talking about this, they don't know anything either. And there are a lot of people like him, he had no idea what he was getting into, who have been kind, who have sent information, and they said, no, they said, I'm not going on the forums. I can't do that. Because if you say to Jace Hall, this happened, they gotta put it on the dispute forum. Okay, the manager of Grand Prix, there's two of them. They're 85 years old, and Jace Hall would think that they're gonna go on the dispute forum and begin to speak. That's never gonna happen, ever. And if they said, Billy, would you like us to do it? They're 85 years old, the answer is no. Okay? There's a particular very fragile person who said, yeah, back in 2000, whatever, Pete Bouvier called and wanted your tape, whatever I had, sent to him. And I go, he did? Yeah. And I said, oh, she says, what I found, I sent. And I said, oh, okay. So that's the first lead as to where the original tapes were. It's also the group who said that somebody went through and rummaged through the tapes. Okay? Somehow, my Perfect Pac-Man tape is gone too. So get ready, put your seatbelt on, that's coming next. Now that was a fun spot. I played. There's a camera. There's no direct feed. There's a camera. There's a crowd. There's reporters. There's people everywhere. It was on 4th of July weekend in New Hampshire at a tourist spot. Okay? It was hooting and hollering, and somehow somebody spent $100,000 to prove otherwise. So that's coming again.
That was just debunked.
Everything has been done similar in a location like that, but in this case, we can't find the tapes. And in particular, that I'm talking longer than I'm supposed to.
So I'm gonna assume that's everybody. Anyone has any more questions?
Go ahead.
Just
Fire
one
away.
more. And it's about the record, so it is more on relevant. And it's got to do with the Boomers board swap video. In the video,
He's an idiot.
no. Listen, there's the video, there's the Donkey Kong Jr. board that he takes out, and he says, I'm taking out the Donkey Kong board, and I'm replacing it with the Donkey Kong Jr. board.
Lying.
He just takes out, there's a video of
No,
it.
he's lying, my friend. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and okay, that's different. Anyway,
It's not different. You want the truth? I'll give you the truth. You stop. I got the whole story.
Okay, tell me the story.
We finished. We ate.
Yeah.
An hour later, he goes, I want to put this on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And everybody went back over to the game, and he took out a board, and he put a board in, and he's too lazy to grab the other board, and he did it for his YouTube channel. He's an idiot.
But that, is a major,
Oh,
thing
no.
that they go against.
You want me to lie to you? You want me to tell you the
But
truth?
that's what it's more like staged than. Okay.
No, but it is staged.
It is
because-
staged.
You made a stage for
No.
his YouTube channel.
No,
Yes, it
it's
was.
staged because there is no, it was not a part of the submission.
I'm being honest with you. He's a knucklehead. What do you want me to tell you?
Okay. Well, he caused you a lot of grief on that.
No, whoa, that's not fair. He didn't cause you that. Because if you would have only caused him that, you would have only caused him that if it was a part of the submission, and that would have been the issue. What happened is someone said in the dispute, hey, look, this guy recorded swapping the board, and that's a part of the submission, so it's fake.
No,
But it's like,
but
it's
see-
not.
But see, I'm going.
But
with
you
Billy
see,
on
you
this one.
asked a question.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, man, I'm pretty good at being honest.
Okay.
Okay, but like, for example, when the game called Fix the Feeling, sorry, came out, Disney called and said, we want you to have this contest, and you'll be on satellite against another guy. And I thought, Yeah, okay, there's no Fix It Felix out yet. I'm there at the event, I looked at the guy on satellite TV. Anyway, I just told her, no. I said no to a lot of stuff. And she called back and she said, if you do it, we're gonna do it at game time, which happens to be owned by a friend of mine, and she said, you can keep the game too. If you win. And I go, keep it if I win. I go, I get it, win or lose. So she agreed. And I didn't know it was Steve Levy. I said, the other guy gets to keep it too. He's got to from me. Well, anyway, I got up there and I was fortunate enough that I got the kill screen. And I won, and we took it home. And Rob did a YouTube video and put it on eBay. And boy, the lady raised hell. She called me, Billy, we did this for you in good faith. This is not a nice game, in quotations, you're playing. Huge. And I called her, I said, no. I said, it's a publicity stunt. Please, we're not selling it. Yes, you are. It's up to $14,000. It's never going to sell. We ran it for $20,000. It wouldn't sell. Okay. You want me to tell you the truth? I just told you the truth. His YouTube was riddled with silly stuff like that. And you're right. It's a headache. And you're right. I'm sorry. And if it caused hardship, you're right. If I could go back in time, I would change that.
Okay.
Man, that's like brutally honest.
Okay.
How about that? Yes, you're right. Yes, I'm sorry. Somebody says, oh, that's not boomers. There's games going off. There's lights, whistles, bells, prizes. There's people. There's chaos. It's the world's largest arcade on a weekend night. It's not boomers? Give me a break. I mean, what's it, movie set?
Yeah, it is, actually.
But, and the people we're talking about, some of them have been in boomers. They know it's boomers.
All right, last one more.
Come
Anyone
on, I
else?
like you ask questions, come on.
Huh? Oh, I mean, because he knows the other question.
No,
Okay.
Good question.
But this is not a secret, I'm being more honest.
Get him, George.
Okay? When I saw you here, no, I walked up and I said, hey, good to see you. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
And I've been ridiculously supportive of you the whole time.
Thank you.
Almost ridiculous.
Okay.
Then I get back on Friday, somebody's like this, sending me messages because I don't go online about what an SOB you are and all the rotten things you had to say. Okay? Honest. You've got to believe me on the souls of my children. I hit delete. I don't open stuff. This is him off. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, this is the environment where we connect and we have fun.
Okay.
And now you're asking questions.
Yeah, I bet these are the questions. Unfortunately, the two interviews that you've had, they didn't really go over like the boomer
Right.
sports swap, and so maybe it's not your fault, but it's just a question that's just been riddling in my head. And so the other one, it's for me. Here's my opinion of you. All right, I'll be straight up. You are, in my opinion, in the 80s, you were a legend. Amazing, 5-6 world records at the same time. I believe all those scores are real. I just think
You don't believe the fun spot score?
I just- I-
Pac-Man?
I think the fun spot.
Man, somebody's really got their claws into you if you're questioning that.
Anyway.
You think Gary Vincent would lie for me? He doesn't like me.
No, not just, but there was the. Anyway, forget the real you brought up, the handshake agreement. There was other stuff, not just that, but it's just this.
Oh, that.
It's just, despite that, you are a good person. And even if I believe what I see, my eyes see something, and they're like, eyes can't lie to me. And so I do think you're a great guy. And I remember asking you like 2-3 times, like, did you use MAME and Splice? And you were like, no, straight to my face. And I actually believed that for a little while, but then I saw the transition boards, and it's hard to, I see it, and I'm like, it's MAME. And it's like a certain version from 116 to 122. And I understand that just what my eyes see, that finger from the freaking fourth girder, it's something that cannot be reproduced on an arcade. That's something that's not reproduced on an arcade. There's other stuff that's not reproduced on the arcade. There's the fact that most people in the Donkey Kong forums, the higher scores, the people that have gone like one people who've seen your gameplay and have said that it is a very highly risky maneuver thing, and the odds of that even paying off are like 1 in a billion. And there's the fact that the odds of just this, like the blue smashes you have, like you have like 3 300 loose masses out of 50. They were all 500s and 800s, and the odds of that are extremely slim too. And so either you are like the luckiest dude on the face of the
Well, I'm a
earth.
lucky dude, but.
But, so there's certain things. There's the board swap thing, and that was it. No one asked me the question, but after all that stuff, it's hard to. I think you're a good
Well,
guy.
you sound like you'd be pretty open to the idea of
It's
Carlos explaining things to you or what he's found.
I've
Or the people from the main community explaining stuff to us.
And so that's the thing is I don't care if you cheated, dude. I do think you cheated, and I'll say it. I think that you cheated, but I don't care because I still think you're a legend from the 80s, and I still think you're a good guy. And despite the fact that I think you cheated, I still think you're a good guy, and I don't care. I don't care if you cheated, okay? So that's just my personal opinion. And it sounds weird, yes, I do believe you cheated, but I believe it's like Barry Bonds. You just whatever, you got caught up into the movie and everything else, and hey, whatever. And if you want to, and we have to be respectfully disagree on this, but I do believe you cheated, but I do think you're still a good guy.
Yeah,
Still
but what
think
I'm
you're a
wondering
legend.
is, are you somebody who's curious for the answers, or are you part of those people that'll never be satisfied?
It's if there was a, because his thing is long, very long,
George,
very long.
You like to hear yourself talk.
No, I just wanted to.
Joe, hold on. Can I ask a question? I just have a question. But I have a question,
Yes.
so don't take this in.
Go for it.
Now, the question here is this, because you said that the transitions of the board look like me. I know you said 2 minutes, right? Okay. The transition of the stage looks like me, right?
In my opinion, yes.
In your opinion, let's say it's fact in your opinion.
Okay.
So this is not about, I'm not gonna question you, I'm asking you a question about another fact. You just learned today that 116 to 122, the transitions of the stage with the little finger, right? You just found out today that main transition or set came out 2 years
Can I take over?
after he made it.
Okay, yeah,
To be
that's an
honest, George,
interesting thing. I
if
gotta
Maine
ask that.
says it didn't exist then, and you wanna hang on to it, there's nothing I can do to help you, nothing. Please don't address it, there's nothing I can do to help you.
Well,
If it wasn't
the
invented,
two-year thing, I'm gonna ask.
nobody got to talk on the
It's-
phone before it was invented.
I will ask that question, because if it actually did happen 2 years after 1047, and if it's found in the 1047 as well, because they focus on the 1.050, but not the 1.40.
It's in all 3 versions.
It is.
147,
Focus on the
1.15,
The one that says Bill's original, the only one that calls it Bill is a knucklehead, you know, okay?
Okay.
He says it's the original tape, it's blank, it has no writing on it except his writing. Do you think I would hand it to him?
Okay. So that's, at least, one thing is, I may say stuff, but I will at least bring it up.
Ask questions.
Yeah, and you
The
bring it
best
up.
thing to do is ask questions.
I will best basically say, hey, what is this with the 2-year thing? This is the first time I heard it this weekend, so I don't know how to digest it. Like, what will the other side say?
He found out on Friday.
Yeah, so it's relatively new. I've been focusing on the Kong off for most.
I agree, that's what we should be doing.
And I've been enjoying the thing. I've been watching the matches, so I haven't yet been able to see what the other side says. I've heard your side, and that's interesting.
I haven't heard my side, it's the first
Yes.
time we spoke.
And
There's
so,
not one person called me to ask me questions, not one, including you before you formed an opinion.
but I did ask
But
you.
now I agree.
All right, I did.
I'll extend my hand to you now.
Okay, I'm not.
Unless you're a brave guy, you don't wanna know.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm just like, so yeah, thanks.
And regardless of what your work,
Yeah,
I've gone out of my way to be here,
yeah,
and I'm happy I did, but that's what I do.
I got you.
I respect you for at least asking questions.
Yeah.
And the
Yes,
first
too,
song off kill screen of the event.
Woo!
Right there.
Not me.
All right, guys, we've kept you hostage here too long. Thank you guys for coming out and.
If it's not over, go watch the finals.
Oh, all right. The finals is there.
Yeah.
You guys didn't get going because I know you want.
If it's not over, go watch the finals.
The finals are between,
The finals are between Daniels and question.
Robbie, what a shot!
Eric, that's what.
Wow!
That's
Whoa! Eric made it in the finals.
Is that good?